This article first appeared on Just Security. 24 years ago this month, President Bill Clinton, a first-term commander-in-chief with no military or foreign policy experience, approved a request from his military commanders to deploy several hundred Special Operations Forces to Somalia. The deployment would eventually lead to a bloody battle on the streets of Mogadishu, horrific images of U.S. soldiers being dragged through angry mobs, and the greatest foreign policy disaster of Clinton's administration. Fast forward to the present, and in roughly the same amount of time in office, President Trump has presided over a significant expansion in special operations deployments while delegating authority to Pentagon leadership and his generals in the field. Earlier this summer, his national security advisor, Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster, declared that the White House was getting out of the tactical business. McMaster's comment is reminiscent of what Clinton would later say in describing the Somalia mission, that he had heeded the lesson of Vietnam, which was not to manage tactical decisions from Washington. Yet the tactical mishaps in Mogadishu would have strategic fallout for President Clinton, teaching his young administration a lot about the role Washington should play in overseeing military operations and ultimately laying the groundwork for how each of his successors would oversee sensitive military missions. We should hope that McMaster's comments reflect a genuine desire to streamline the National Security Council process, not to neglect those painful lessons learned. Of course, much has changed since 1993. President Trump inherits a very different geopolitical landscape and a cadre of special operations forces honed through continuous operations since 9/11. But since the Black Hawk Down incident, 3 successive administrations have developed approaches to managing special operations that consider the full range of risks, operational, diplomatic, political, through careful policy process prior to operational deployments. The framework that Barack Obama left to his successor evolved out of his predecessor's approaches and formalized careful oversight of operations. SPC Philip Allen from Towanda, Pennsylvania, with the U.S. Army's 2nd Battalion 87th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Brigade Combat Team, 10th Mountain Division patrols up a mountainside near Forward Operating Base, FOB, Shank on March 31, 2014 near Pul-e-Alam, Afghanistan. Through its early months in office, the Trump administration, both by design and circumstance, has presided over a deconstruction of the Obama framework that critics had blasted as inappropriately tactical. No president is obliged to follow the policies of his predecessor, but through his early actions, President Trump may be raising the specter of a special operations disaster for which the government and the U.S. public are both unprepared. His responsibility as commander-in-chief is not to eliminate the risks that are inherent to counterterrorism but rather to set the conditions, by hiring a good team and creating a sound policy process, so that he can make sound decisions and the American people can feel confident about the risky missions for which their military is deployed. To do anything less is to ignore the lessons of the past 24 years, and invite a disaster of the president's own making. Deconstruction, unpacking the lessons from the past in order to understand the troubling signs of President Trump's early tenure and why it could end so badly. It's worth recalling the Black Hawk Down disaster. Specifically, how flaws in the process and dynamics under which the deployment was approved may have contributed to suboptimal decision-making, if not the operational catastrophe itself. President Clinton took office following a bruising campaign in which he was portrayed as a war-protesting draft dodger taking on an incumbent president who was a decorated war hero and immensely successful commander-in-chief. Clinton inherited Somalia from President George H.W. Bush but quickly embraced the mission, which seemed to be a new model for using American military might post-Cold War to foster peace, stability, and humanitarian aims. But the Somalia mission quickly grew more difficult than Clinton's team had anticipated. The United Nations urged bolder action, and by their first summer, the administration was looking for options to improve the situation on the ground. American military commanders in the Middle East and Horn of Africa proposed adopting a more aggressive approach focused on manhunting Somali warlords who were destabilizing Mogadishu and impeding the distribution of food aid. Then Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Colin Powell expressed some reticence about the expanded mission but eventually deferred to senior military commanders, and Clinton would approve the creation of a special operations task force that would conduct raids and other operations in